think of the one ex that you could do without. If like you wouldn't care if your friendship was completely gone.
Okay.
Can you think of that person?
Yeah.
Okay. This is what I want you to do. I want you to write that person's name down right here, just the first name. Okay. And when you're done, just turn the card face down so I can't see it. And of course, it's extra thick, so there's no way I can see. Okay. So go ahead and do that. And when you do that, just face it this way or go in the corner so that
hold it.
yeah, so that I can't see. You got it? Is it face down?
Yes.
Okay, face me. Now write your initials on the back of it. Perfect. This. So now you know there's absolutely no way that I could even switch it if I wanted, right? And there's no way I can see it because it's extra thick, right? Okay, so let me ask you one question. Do you know this person's birthday? You don't? Okay.
You don't?
We'll do it here.
No.
I want you to take the card. I'm not going to look. I'm just going to fold it up. You can see that's your initials,
Yes.
right? Hold on to that. You can put it in your pocket or wherever you want.
Sure.
And think of what this person looks like.
Got it right here. Okay.
Okay. I'm getting darker hair. Is that right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Is this person taller than you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they have lighter colored eyes, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have like a nickname you call this person? Don't say it.
Yes.
Yeah, you do, yeah. Are you thinking of the nickname or the full name?
The full name.
The full name, okay. Let's see if I'm getting this.
I'm gonna
Okay, I'm gonna show them the name first.
Okay.
Don't look.
I know his name. Could
Don't
be.
don't say it out loud.
Could be.
Don't say it out loud.
Shut up.
Don't say it out loud.
Shooting now.
Okay, come over here for a second. Now, if I got the name right, I want you to give me a kiss on the cheek.
Okay.
If I got it wrong, I want you to slap me in the face.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes. Ah! Okay.
That's it?
Yes.
Cool, high five.
What the
Wait, it gets better.
Okay.
Now you said you wouldn't mind kind of forgetting about this person, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead and put your hand out like this. We'll use this hand. Just look at one spot on your hand.
Okay.
As your hand moves closer to your face, your eyes are going to start to change focus.
Okay.
As they change focus, just allow your eyes, just notice how your eyes change focuses, right? Allow your eyes to close. That's right, and just sleep. Just relax, sleep and stand.
Okay.
That's right. Take a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. In a moment, you're going to open your eyes, and you're going to have no idea who this person is. You're not going to even remember Chris at all. Chris is not going to even exist in your mind whatsoever. In fact, the only name that's going to come to your mind is Reginald. That's the only name that's going to come to your mind, Reginald. Chris no longer exists in your mind whatsoever. Once you eyes wide awake. You feel all right?
Yes.
Can we do that?
Wait. What? Who are you? So who's Chris?
I don't know.
You don't know.
No, I don't know.
You don't remember Chris at all.
No.
Well, that's what you wrote, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you wrote Chris.
No.
Yeah.
Reginald.
Are you sure?
What the?
You're lying, dude.
How'd that happen?
I don't know. That's what you wrote down.
What the? I mean, sorry.
Hey guys, I'm Brandon Queen. Thanks for purchasing Lacuna. A little bit about this effect. First off, Lacuna is a name from a movie, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which is one of my favorite movies. And in the movie, the basic concept is that there's this company that erases people's minds of past relationships and things so that they can move on. And the company was called Lacuna, so that's where the name comes from. But the whole concept of this effect stemmed from that idea of what would it be like if you could actually erase someone's mind or memory of a person that caused them grief or distress. And this is what I came up with. The original method was published in my first book, Fathom. And the method is a little bit different in the book. In the book, it's more propless. You don't need any props whatsoever, or gimmicks rather, to achieve the effect. I really wanted to do this close up, and the way the method works with Stage, I couldn't do it because it uses a dual reality, it uses a Dunninger ploy at some point in the trick. So doing this close up, I was only able to do it at parties or where it's really loud and that kind of environment. And so I came up with this method. I just kind of made it up on the spot to see if it would work, and it ended up working well. And then throughout time, I've slowly developed different methods to make it more deceptive. So with this method, I'm using a stack of cards. These are just blank business cards. They're blank on both sides. They don't have to be blank on both sides. That's just what I happen to be using now. So there's a few steps to this routine, and there's two main phases to the routine. I'm going to go through the first phase, mind reading section. So for the first part, I'm having someone write down, the name they're thinking of. They sign the back of the card, and then they take the card and fold it up, put it in their pocket. And of course, I need to know what that name is. So what I'm actually doing is, it's a little deceptive. I'm using, this is a double, and they're stuck together. And the person handling the cards the whole time is actually handling the double, so that I don't have, I'm not doing a double lift. They're doing it unknowingly. And the way I'm putting this double together, it's actually just, I'm using chapstick, and preferably Burt's Bees is what I'm using. For some reason, the waxiness of the Burt's Bees works best for me. Plus, it's a clear coat. It's not colored like red or whatever, cherry flavored. So it goes on clear. You can't see it. The smell's not too strong. It's just menthol. It's on my mouth anyway most of the time. So if anyone smells it, I'm sure they would just think it's around my face. So I have someone write the name down, turn it face down, write their initials, and this is in their hand the whole time. At that point, after they do that, I take the Sharpie back, or the pen back, and then I take the stack back. And at this point, I give them some misdirection. I ask them a question, and the question I ask them is, do you know this person's birthday? And I'll get to that in a minute, because that is also an important part. But when I ask them that question, that's when I secretly peel off the top. It comes off real easily, depending on how far in advance you prep this. If it's on there for a while, I think it comes off a little bit easier. If it's on there, if it's fresh, it's a little like goopy, kind of. It's like sticky. But yeah, so I just kind of peel it off. It doesn't make a noise because it's waxy. It's not like a sticky tape. So it peels off, and then I just kind of keep a pinky break right here. And when I'm ready, I explain to them that I'm going to hand them the card. And when I do this, I turn away, make sure I'm not looking, and I take the card off the top, and I just give it a fold, and I fold it twice like this, and then again, and then I hand them the card, and I make sure that they can see their initials on the back, and tell them to hold onto it or put it in their pocket. Once they do that, I'm now holding on to the actual card that they wrote the name on. And let's just say they thought of, I don't know, Bob. So let's say they thought of Bob, right? And the name I'm forcing, when I hand them, when they take the other card, I'm actually switching the card so they're getting a different name, which is the force name that I'm giving them. I happen to use the name Chris because it's a very common name, and the chances of the person knowing a Chris in their lifetime is pretty high. So I use a name that I think most people have met, or at least would assume that their friend has known before. So once this is in their hand or in their pocket, I then have their actual name here. What I do at this point is I put my hands down by my side or against my chest, and I just flip the card with one hand. Very simple. There's not really a move. There's no move about it. It's just flipping the card. When I do that, I can now just look down and glimpse the name. If they're looking at my eyes, then I know they're most likely going to be following my eyes, and they're going to. If I look down, they're going to look down, and then they're going to know that I'm looking at something. Often, if they're looking at their friends, or if they're being distracted by something else, or they're looking at my hands, which there would not be much of a reason to do that. At that point, then I would just look down at at my hands and peek the name. This is actually called, there's a name for this, it's called the triadic eye gaze. And what that is it's the triadic meaning three. There's your eyes, their eyes, and then the object. And the principle is that their eyes are going to follow wherever your eyes look. And so if they're just looking at my eyes to justify the look, I'll act like I'm making a note of something. Once I get information, I'll be like, is this a male? And they'll say yes, and I'll act like I'm writing something, or I'll write something over it. It doesn't matter. I'll scribble. And then once I get the name, I turn it back over face down so that I can, again, hold the cards in a mechanic's grip casually, without kind of, concealing anything. At some point while I'm revealing information about this person, I just flip the cards over, and it's very casual. It's not a move. I don't make a move out of it. I literally just turn it over face down, act like I'm, dribbling the cards or whatever it is. At this point, I now have my force name on the bottom, which I've pre-written before. So again, the stack is very bottom, face up is the force name, just written out like normal. This is what I'm going to be showing the audience. That goes on bottom. Very top is just an X with a line. This is where the spectator is going to be writing. And then I have the force name written as if they wrote this down. And this gets glued on, or not, chapsticked on together like this, so it becomes one card, and that goes on top. So again, the spectator has the force name Chris. This is supposedly their handwriting. They're holding onto this. This is on the top, face down. And then on the opposite side is my handwriting of the force name. So what I'm going to do at this point, once I've done my cold reading and revealed information about the person they're thinking of, I then get a pinky break below the two cards, because remember, this is on top, and the next one's just a blank card. I turn it face up. Again, it's going to be blank on that side. And I write down the real name they're thinking of. So in this case, they're thinking of Bob. So I'm just going to write down Bob. And I don't show this to anybody. This is secret to me. Make sure it's dry. And once I do this, I just turn the double over secretly, facing me. I just turn it face down and then pick up the card. Now I'm holding the Chris name. At this point, I tell all the entire audience, or the group or whatever, wherever you're doing this, I tell them I'm going to show them the name, but I want the spectator to look away. At this point, the spectator turns away, and I show the entire group or audience the name that I think the spectator is thinking of, which is Chris. Then I put the card back down, and as I'm doing this, I simultaneously draw attention back to the spectator and say, you can turn around now. And at this point, everyone kind of looks at the spectator, and at this point, this gives you enough misdirection to do a top change. My top change is not very good, but I've never been caught doing it because of that misdirection. I'm just simply taking the card down and just doing my top change, and then now holding the real name. So just Chris, top change to Bob. At this point, I ask the spectator who's thinking of Bob to come stand next to me so that they're now facing the audience, the group. And this is important because the audience cannot see that I've switched the name. They can't see that the name is now different because there's a dual reality here. I'm now showing the spectator a different name, which is the real name they're thinking of. So to reveal this, you can just simply go, if I got this right, say yes or whatever. But I've found that if you make it more verbal, they're more likely to say, oh my gosh, it is, how do you know Bob? Or whatever the name is. They're going to verbally say the name, and then they're going to spoil it because they're thinking of Chris. So the way I handle this is I make it more fun, and I say, if I got the name correct, I want you to give me a kiss on the cheek. And if I got it wrong, I want you to slap me in the face. And this kind of creates this neat moment of tension where I'm standing there with my eyes closed, not knowing what I'm going to get. And the audience doesn't know if I'm going to get it right or not. And when I show the girl the name, she gives me a kiss on the cheek, and then that confirms that I did get the name correct. So when doing a top change, I'm going to admit I'm not the greatest at doing this at all. And this really does prove, I mean, you really don't have to do a really good top change in this context for this effect in order for it to be effective whatsoever. But basically what I'm doing is I'm taking the card, I showed the audience the one card, and in misdirection, I tell the person, the spectator who's turning away, I tell them that they can now turn back and face me, and as they do that, that gives me enough misdirection to do the move. And what I'm basically doing is I'm holding the pack and mechanics grip, and I'm pushing the top card, slightly jogging it to the right, to my right, with my thumb. And as I do this, that gives this, gives it kind of a little lip that I can grab, like when you deal off a card normally. And as I do that, I bring this over and make them flush as best as I can, and then just peel off the bottom as I pull this back simultaneously. So it's coming this way, pushing it forward, lining them up, pulling this back, and taking this card. And when doing it fast, and plus, since the backs are all white, I mean, there's no borders to where you can see it. It all looks kind of one big white blob, blurry, especially, you know, in a darker environment. If you're performing in like a club or outside or wherever it is, most people perform at evening anyway. Taking the card back, pushing forward, pulling back. As you can see, mine's very sloppy. It's not very deceptive, but it gets the job done. I mean, you can even turn your hand up a little bit if you wanted, without, you know, keeping the card down this way, but your hand up. That kind of, you know, keeps people from seeing what you're doing. I mean, I do this on the offbeat. It's all about the timing, and of course, using that misdirection of having the spectator turn around. Because when you have the spectator turn around, everybody's looking at that person because they want to see their reaction. They want to know what's going to happen next. Simply taking the card, doing the switch, and now you're holding the other name. And you just hold it in this position until they come next to you, and then that's when you can show them the switch name out of the name they're actually thinking of. Let me go to the cold reading part before I get into the second phase. So the cold reading part is I asked them, do you know this person's birthday? And this was originally inspired by something that Oz Perlman came up with, and his Abyss DVD is where I heard it from. After learning this from Oz Perlman through his DVD, he didn't really explain too much about it other than that's, you know, you can get information from it. So after doing this for a long time, I've kind of accumulated some really good information that I can obtain from that simple question. And what I've noticed is if the person, I base it on whether they say yes or no and how fast they respond, or how they respond to the question. If I ask them, if I say, do you know this person's birthday? And they say, and they think about it, yeah, I know the birthday. That usually means that if they say yes regardless, it means they're either really close with them, they're a family member, or they're a friend or something that they've known for a really long time. If they say no, then it's probably an acquaintance or someone much older than them that could be their family member. If they respond quickly, if they say yes, but it's a quick response like, yes, yeah, I know their birthday, that means it's someone that's, it's close with them, and they're still really close, they're very active in their life currently. It could be like a husband or wife or a sibling or someone in their immediate family, or even someone in their current relationship, like boyfriend and girlfriend. If they hesitate with a yes, then that means, usually it means that it's someone they've known for a long time, but they're not necessarily maybe active in their current life, or they haven't seen them in a long time, or it could mean that they're older or much younger. If they say no, but they seem like they should know the name, like, and they kind of think about it, and they go, I don't know, like, and they almost feel like, not embarrassed, but like they think they should know the name. That usually means it's a really good friend, or most likely a family member, like a parent or a most likely a grandparent, and they, for some reason, they don't know the birthday. They know the person really well, but for some reason they just don't know the birthday. And I think that's very common with a lot of people. They don't know their grandparents' birth dates. So usually when they hesitate, they say no with a hesitation, then I usually guess it's a grandparent. If they say flat out no, like I don't know this person's birthday, it's usually an acquaintance or someone new in their life that they haven't known for a long time. So with all that information, I'm able to, give them a really good cold reading on how they know this person, whether they're older, younger, family member, friend, what kind of family member they are, if they're sibling or whatnot. Once I have that information, I'll kind of ask them to imagine what they look like, and I'll describe them. And what I usually say is, I'll look at the person, and if it's a family member, if I've deduced that it's a family member, I describe what they look like, but the opposite sex. So if I'm doing this for a female, and they're thinking of a male, and based off of how they answered that question, if I've deduced that it's a family member, then I'll just describe a male version of them. Dark eyes, brown hair, or whatever it is, or blue eyes, blonde hair. If I've deduced that it's a friend, I typically, I just kind of look at them and think, what kind of person do I think they would date? Would they date someone tall? Would they date someone blonde? And I just describe what I'm guessing that they would date. So with a female who's blonde with blue eyes, I usually say they have lighter colored hair. I usually kind of just describe them, but a male version. And of course, most men are taller than women, not all, but most. So I usually say they're taller, and of course that gets a hit. And I'll say they're male, obviously that's a hit. That's 2, and then I'll kind of describe what they look like at that point. If I say to someone, they have darker hair, don't they? And they say no, then I just say, well, it's darker than your hair. Because when I say darker, what am I comparing it to? Darker than what? They're assuming black or something. But when I say darker, I kind of bring context into what I'm saying and say, well, it's darker than your hair. It's not blonde. It's darker. It's like a brown, like a light brown, but it's darker than yours. And they'll say yes. With the eyes, once I get the color of the hair, if it's blonde hair or lighter colored hair, then I go with like green eyes or blue eyes. If they say yes, it's definitely darker hair, then I'll guess brown eyes. That usually hits because most people with darker hair have brown eyes and so forth. The other thing that I like to do, and this always gets a hit, I say, I'm sensing that there's a distance between you and this person, and I'm not sure if it's a physical distance or an emotional distance, but I do sense that there's a wall between you and this person. When I say that, people always react to this because the physical distance could be, they live far away and they're not in touch anymore. The emotional distance can mean, obviously it's their ex, so of course, very few, not very few, but not everyone stays in contact with their exes. A lot of people kind of sever those relationships. And so saying that there's an emotional distance with this person usually is a hit and is kind of obvious, but for some reason it doesn't seem too obvious to the people when I'm doing this. Even if you have them think of someone that's not an ex, or if you do this effect and you have them think of anybody, this still really works really well, because even if they're close to them in physical distance, emotionally, they could have. Everyone who's really close has disagreements or fights at some point in their relationships, and you could kind of bank on that aspect itself. I sense you're not as close lately, and if they still say no, like no, we're close, you can say, well, I'm sensing that maybe a month ago or a week ago you had a disagreement about something, and it wasn't really a big fight, but you guys just had a disagreement. And you're basically really pumping and fishing for them to say, to connect to this distance. this emotional distance, and you're kind of putting context into that statement. The other thing I like to say as a cold reading sort of thing is, I feel that there's a secret that you've always wanted to tell this person, but you've never had the chance or opportunity to tell them. Based off their facial expression, if they seem kind of confused by it, then I make it more clear. I say, well, it's not necessarily a secret, but it's just something that you haven't told them enough. And I'm kind of alluding to someone just simply saying I love you, or that they care about them. Because sometimes, people that we care about and stuff, we don't say that often enough verbally to them. And I kind of get to the point of that, I don't straight up say that, but I allude to that in my statement when I refine it, when they seem confused or they disagree with that statement. But other times when they do, when they seem to yeah, there is something I've never told this person, then it seems more like it's like a not dark, but like it's a secret, like something they really don't want them to know, and they just haven't had the opportunity to tell them. At that point, I make it seem like I know what that secret is, but I'm going to keep it too. Like I say, don't worry, we'll keep it between you and me. Sometimes I tell them that they should tell them the secret when they get the opportunity to. It's kind of fun to do. That's basically it. I like to describe what they look like, how they know them, how long they've known them, and how close they are with this person. Once I do that, that's the entire first phase of the routine. And really, you could just end there if you wanted. But the problem is with close-up is people are going to talk and they're going to say, well, how did he know you thought of Chris? And then the spectator will of course, reveal, I wasn't thinking of Chris, I was thinking of Bob. So in order to cover that part up, I've come up with this second phase. The second phase is actually sort of a cleanup to the first phase, because there's a dual reality. If you walk away just with that part, with a small group, they're going to talk to each other and they're going to know that they saw one name and then the spectator saw another. So what I'm doing here is I'm basically doing a pseudo-hypnosis process to justify what I'm doing. Sometimes people do go into hypnosis when I do this, but it really doesn't matter if they do or don't. Only because I know how to hypnotize people, that people usually can sometimes actually go into a trance of some kind. But I try to make it light, and I don't really tell them I'm going to hypnotize them. I just tell them, sometimes I'll just tell them to close their eyes, or I'll do a simple induction without including the pre-setup, the building that expectation that they're going to be hypnotized. I don't build that into it because I don't necessarily want them to be hypnotized. But there are definitely suggestible people out there that kind of, that may have experienced hypnosis before, and they kind of go into it because they know the process, they've experienced that process before, and they kind of go into it. It makes it far more dramatic when they go down and they're closing their eyes. But as soon as I tell them to open their eyes, they're back to normal anyway, or they appear that way to the rest of the audience. So the illusion is I'm creating the illusion that I'm putting them in a trance when I'm actually not. And when I'm doing this, I'm telling them that they're not going to remember my force name, which is Chris, that they're going to have no recollection of who Chris is, and that the only name that's going to pop in their mind, and I insert the name they are actually thinking of, in this case it would be Bob. So I'd say, in a moment you're going to open your eyes, you're going to have no recollection of who Chris is. In fact, the only name that you can think of is Bob. Anytime you try to think of Chris, Bob is the only name that comes to your mind. Once you understand, open your eyes, and then they open their eyes, and at this point they're really confused because they don't know who Chris is, and they don't know why I even said the name Chris, because at that point they're like, wait, you showed me Bob, who's Chris, why are you talking about Chris? And then I simply just ask them, so who's Chris? And of course they're going to say, I have no idea. They don't know who Chris is because they just made it up. And at that point, the rest of the audience watching, observing, is going to see that, holy crap, like he's just erased their memory. And then I say, well, who were you thinking of? And I have them confirm, oh, I was thinking of Bob. I don't really know Chris. And then it's that point, usually when I do this, I just leave it at that and I walk away. I don't usually draw attention to the card that's in their pocket. I like them to kind of go away. I like them to prove to me that they wrote down Bob, and let them pull it out and show that they've written down whatever. But at that point, it's more fun because they walk away with their friends or whatever it is, having conversation about that, and their friends will say, well, you wrote down Bob, or let's see what you wrote down. And then, of course, when they pull out the card, they see that the name says Chris, which is supposedly what they wrote down. Drawing attention to it is also great as well. You can, in the moment, you can say, well, let's see what you wrote down, and then of course they pull it out and it says Chris, and there's the proof right there that's the actual name they wrote down originally, and you did change their mind to think of this new name being Bob, when actuality you made them think of, you're making the audience think that they thought of Chris. So that's the second half of the routine that kind of cleans up the dual reality, and brings the whole routine together as a whole, and makes this effect real fun, forgetting someone's name. So it's first half is reading someone's mind, and then second half erasing their memory, and with pseudo-hypnosis. Here is an alternative method for Lacuna. So if you do not want to use the chapstick, you can, because maybe if you're afraid that they're going to find that it's a double, or whatever reason it is, or maybe you just don't like the idea of using it, we have an alternative method that my friend Brennan came up with. And basically, this is going to be the setup. You're going to have the card they're going to write on top, or just on the side, doesn't matter. But on the very bottom, you're going to have the force name that is supposed to be the name, their handwriting. So it's the force name on the very bottom, and second to bottom is the duplicate, or the same name, the force name that's just written out, which is going to be what you're going to show the audience. So that goes like that, and then the stack is on top. The very top of the stack is the card you're going to write on. So you can, at this point, what you can do is, instead of telling them to take the stack and do all this thing, you can just say, here, take the card and write the name on it. As they do that, you can hand them the pack and then tell them just to place the name face down. The one drawback, though, is you cannot have them write their name on their initials on the back of this card, because obviously it's not a double. Once they place it face down, you're going to take the stack back, and you're simply just going to turn the pack over during your misdirection. And this is of course, when you ask if they know the person's birthday. So once again, this is placed face down. You take the stack back, and you simply just turn the entire pack upside down. Now this leaves you with the force name on top. So at this point, what you can do is, so they place it on top. So do you know this person's birthday? Blah, 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 blah. Actually, you know what? You take the card, and then so you're just going to hand them this card straight away, and then have them fold it and put it in their pocket. That leaves you with this card on top, and their name that they've written on the bottom. And this is where you're going to get the peek. You're basically going to be dribbling the cards in conversation, and you're going to look down at it. So when you're going to do the peek, you just simply dribble like this, and you can see the name very easily in that glimpse. Depending on how fast you can read or how sloppy they've written the name, obviously you might, if you really wanted, you could just tilt it up like this and peek it if you wanted and still hold the cards. I prefer to kind of do it in just a simple, as I'm talking, quickly glance at my hands and just, you can do it a few times if you need to read it more than once, just to double check, just kind of act like you're playing with the cards, giving it a dribble. And as you can see that name. Let's just put a name down just so you can really see that. So let's say you can't see what I'm putting, we'll put this name here, just to see how easy it actually is to read in that moment. So not knowing what the name is, let's see. And in that moment, you can see that the name is clearly Matt. Oops. Again, you can just hold it like this if you wanted, get a peek. I mean, there's so many different ways, but I think this is just the easiest. So once you get your peek, you're now set up again with the pre-written name, the force name on top, blank card on bottom, obviously. This is where you're going to do the double lift, and you're going to write the real name right here. So let's say the name is Bob. So you're going to do your double lift. Pretend this is blank. You write Bob, turn it face down, and then this is what you show the audience. And then, of course, you do your top change, and this is what you show your spectator, Bob, or whatever name that they thought of. Then you put this in your pocket, and that's it. The cards are completely out of play, and all that's left is the one card that's in their pocket, which is the force name, mine being Chris. And then erasing their mind, making them think of the new name, which is the name they actually are thinking of. In this case, or in our example, is Bob. And that's that. All right, guys. Well, that's about it for Lacuna. Thanks again for purchasing Lacuna. And I really encourage you guys to get out there and try this effect. I mean, as you can see, it gets great reactions. And I mean, this is such a perfect effect for people who are transitioning or wanting to do hypnosis, who are kind of, can't find the right environment to do hypnosis. This is a perfect effect for that. So go out there and try this effect and blow some people's minds.